hello and welcome to day 11, where we've completed a few more minis. We have an archer, possibly an elf, in forest colors. We have a sort of wizard in more dramatic outfit. We have another wizard who looks a lot bigger. I think that's mostly because of the base, or is he actually? He's actually a little bigger, slightly larger in scale. Who is kind of sneaky. He's got the bouquet of flowers, but he's also hiding a weapon. And finally, the dwarf, who wants to get wants to rise in the world, so to speak. He feels a bit inadequate, perhaps. Anyway, those are the 4 finished minis I have today. And all of these guys are well on the way. It might be hard to tell from just looking at them, but all of these models have at most 2 major colors left to be applied, and then maybe some little bit of detail work, and they'll be done. It's just a matter of being efficient and using the same color on several minis if I want to pick up speed. But they'll soon be in the can. Now, I thought this guy was done, actually, when I glued on the throne, but after trying to make it fit, I noticed something. It doesn't quite fit. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's a gap here because it doesn't exactly slot precisely into place. I had to either... He's tilted slightly forward, the throne, right now, because the only other option was to tilt it back, and that would raise his feet into the air. I didn't want that. So I'm gonna have to go in sort of after the fact now and do some very careful gap filling here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get out the green stuff with just the plastic putty, but it will need to be fixed and then painted over in some way as to hide it, and then I'll be done with this whole model. Anyway, I fixed these guys. I fixed the wings again. Now they look much more dramatic. They look like Stuka bombers swooping in, dive bombing or something. Now there's quite large gaps here that need filling as well. That's the next thing. I'm also gonna have to think about the riders. These wings on these guys are kind of boring. I don't know if I can bend them up a little bit to make them more, makes it a little more interesting. Anyway, if I understand this correctly, there should be 2 riders on each of these. One is straddling the neck like this, and the other one is just sort of sitting somewhere behind like a co-pilot. Probably, I'm not sure if it should be facing ahead or... Yeah, should probably not have 2 archers on one. There's a few, there's like here, one of these guys is a spear wielder. This one's an archer. Now, the big question here is, of course, attach these before or after painting. The disadvantage of attaching them before is it'll be harder to paint the top here of the lizard. On the other hand, if I try to attach them after, if I paint these separately, they're extremely small and fiddly, and also then I'll still have to like scrape off paint anyway, because you can't glue paint on paint. That doesn't create a bond. I could do something in between. Like paint these guys. First, scrape off some paint at the connection point. Just prime these by hand, leaving the metal bare, then glue them on, and then paint them in place. On the other hand, they're difficult to get. If they're that close to each other, it's really difficult to paint the skinks as well in place. Decisions. Check back in the next video or the one after that to see what I decided. And finally, to end day 11, I'm going to answer the question of if you could own any weapon, armor, or piece of gear from any fictional universe, excluding living, undead, demonic, or otherwise sentient beings. Oh, so no Stormbringer. What would you want? How would you use it? Show it off. I've got two options here. One is if I can combine this with my answer to the question of superpowers from last year. If you'll recall, I answered that I wanted Professor X's telepathy. If I had that, I would of course want Cerebro. And I would use that to extend my powers over the world. And so I didn't have to travel as much. I could mind control people on the other side of the globe without having to move from the comfort of my home. That would be good. If I have to do a sort of standalone answer to this question, I would say that I would want a version of the super soldier serum that turned Steve Rogers into Captain America, but one tailored to my biology, so it would work on me and make me into such a physical specimen that he is. That would be interesting. And how would I show that off? Well, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? I'd go shirtless all the time. Yeah. Anyway, that'll be day 11. And join me tomorrow for day 12. See you then.